Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to take a moment to talk about an awesome book series called You Don't Know JS. It's written by someone named Kyle Simpson. It was actually began as a Kickstarter project, and I believe there's about six books within the series. And I just wanted to say that it is really, really good stuff because I think that there's a lot of people today that are just jumping straight into the frameworks. I actually have one, two, three, four. Okay, fine. I got four of them. I think that the other two that I don't have, one is called Types and Grammar, which is just about data types, and the other one is called Up and Going, which is for really, really beginners. I think people just explaining what a variable, what a function is, something like that. But I just want to take a moment to talk about these four because they're really, really awesome. And I'll just take a small moment to talk about each one of them. I think the first one of them that I read, I read 3 out of 4. I'm almost done with 3 out of 4. And man, it's really, really hard. It's like one of these things like you pretty much and it's you read it and you need to read it, and sometimes it takes about 15 minutes for just 2 pages, because especially if you're new to JavaScript and you're new to coding. I started coding about 2 years ago, and that's why it's a little hard for me sometimes. And pretty much when I started coding, I went to a boot camp for about 3 months that got the snowball running. I'll make another video just about the coding bootcamp, but the scopes, and I'll just say what this one is about. It's called Scope and Closures. It's about how functions have something called scope, which is a variable. You really have to read it in order to understand it. It talks a little bit about what variables equal when they're inside a function, and using the same, how it affects the global variable that's outside the function. If I have the variable, let's say the variable beach ball width equals blank within a function, is that always going to affect the global variable, and that kind of thing. And it talks a little bit about let and var and const, I think. It's got another book all about ES6, and that's really good too. But it's kind of interesting. But he always knows how to make things sophisticated somehow, and he brings all sorts of code examples. And that's a really good book. Let's look at the next one. Ooh, this and object prototypes. That's a really, really big question, which is this. You probably have seen it all over your JavaScript code, and guess what? If you want to be a JavaScript coder, you have to know what the word this is. It's usually, what does it refer to? Let's say, does it refer to the object? I went on a job interview, they asked me, what's this? What does it refer to? And I said, it refers to the function being called within the object, something like that. It's really confusing. It's really confusing stuff, but man. That's the thing, I tell you, I don't think that you can really learn how to program within 3 months. It's just way too confusing. So it goes into the 4 main rules of how to know what this is going to refer to. And there's all sorts of cases, all sorts of use cases. Pretty much all the books have a ton of use cases. And again, a lot of times I would start reading it, and I would have to spend something like 15 minutes, 20 minutes on 2 pages. Just zone out, look out the window, and try to figure out what the code meant, or what he was saying in a specific paragraph. It's really, really heavy duty, dense stuff, but at the same time, there's no other way to do it. That's why a lot of people, I think right now in the developer market, there's a shortage of developers with 3 years of experience, but there's no shortage of developers with only 1 year experience or 3 months of experience, because the boot camps are pumping out people that have a little bit of coding skills, but just not enough to get an entry-level position. At least in 2018 in Israel, that's the situation. Okay, so that covers this and object prototypes. Ooh, prototypes. I have to make another video all about what prototypes is in JavaScript, because prototypes are pretty much one of the most important fundamental concepts. There's something called prototypal inheritance, which means that if an object is a subclass of another object, then it inherits all of its parents' attributes, and it's really complicated. You have to really look into it, but it's gonna open up. That's why I really love this book series, because it goes through everything pretty much from the beginning, from the basics, and I think that you really need to start from the basics of the language. Don't jump. You can jump into the frameworks like Angular or React, but eventually you're going to get stuck on stuff in Angular and React if you haven't taken the time to understand what this is, to understand what functional programming is, passing a function in through a function, and all this other stuff. I'll talk about functional programming in another video. Okay, so we've covered. Oh, okay. Now, and the last book, another book. This is book number 3 out of 4 that I'm up to. He's got a total of 6 of these in the series, so you can imagine that this guy really goes into the nitty-gritty of the language. Let's talk about async and performance. What's good about this book, Async and Performance? You know why? Because every single job interview that you go into for a junior developer position is going to ask you about async. How do you handle asynchronous stuff? Asynchronous means it means, let's say I have 2 processes. How do I make them in order? Process number 1 happens. Go fetch me some data from an API. Wait until the data comes back. Then do something with that data. Don't do step number 2 until data from step number 1 comes back. And there's a whole book about it. Again, that's what if you want to make an API request to 2 endpoints. You want to get data from 2 different places at the same time. Then you say, I want you to send the data I want you to make a request for data number 1 and for data number 2 at the exact same time, and then wait for both of them to come back. Promise.all, that's called, and do something with the data from both of the sources. And you have to. There's just no way to get around it. Async and performance is one of the most important aspects in JavaScript, and you're going to struggle with these things. So if you're actually serious about learning how to code, or you're serious about becoming a master of the JavaScript craft, then there's just no getting around async and performance. You may learn it on the job. If you got lucky and you got an entry-level position, then it's possible that you'll learn from blog posts. Like as you struggle with these things, but still, nonetheless, I still needed the introduction. I did a 3-month boot camp, and I tried to build stuff independently, and I just watched a shitload of tutorials on Udemy, and at the same time, I just didn't know what's async and performance. I showed up to the job interviews, they're like, what's promise.all mean? How do you handle asynchronous stuff? And explain to us a scenario or something, and so this is really awesome. Okay, let's look at what this book talks about. It also talks about something called async await, which is an ES6. It talks about promises. Promises is a really big part of it. It talks about something called generators, which is it's a similar concept to what you have in Python also, in iterators. Generators and iterators, and which is kind of like looping at your own discretion, looping programmatically. And man, it was a really heavy book, and it's really fun to read. But again, this is books that sometimes promise trust. Then it starts with actually callbacks. Callbacks used to be passed into a function. A callback is a function that you pass into another function, and you say, when you finish up your process, call back this function. And there's really no way that if that sounds really confusing, if a lot of the stuff that I said in this video sounds really confusing, then it means you may have to go and meditate about this book. This is a book on meditation and meditating on advanced mathematical concepts. That's pretty much what it is. It's called Async and Performance. So that one's really, really important. Promise.resolve, promise.reject. The problem with callbacks, what did developers used to struggle with before they had promises. Somebody made a promise library, eventually it got built into the function, and so on. And then at the end of the book, he talks a little bit about performance and benchmarking, how to make your code faster, and different libraries that are good for making your code faster. So that's really awesome. And I almost finished that. I wasn't as interested in the part about performance, because I just wanted to move on to the next thing, and I like to book hop. I like to hop from book to book. So that takes care of that. And finally, the last book that I have is called ES6 and Beyond. And I think that this was the 6th book in the series. I think it was the last book in the series. Again, this guy, Kyle Simpson, made a Kickstarter campaign, I guess, to fund. He's a web evangelist. It says here, Kyle Simpson is an open web evangelist who's passionate about JavaScript. He's an author, workshop trainer, tech speaker, and OSS contributor leader. Okay. Let's see. And then finally, I'm looking forward to reading it, ES6 and Beyond. I got about $600 USD worth of coding books. I love to read it on the weekends. It's really fun for me. I actually totally disconnect from technology on the weekend. I don't open up my computer. I don't open up my cell phone. I just disconnect. But I like to read, and everybody has their own method, and it does help because a lot of times you open up your computer and you think that you're going to get some work done, and then you get distracted. You're getting all these social media notifications. You hop on social media a little bit. Twitter, Instagram is asking you to, it tells you that somebody mentioned you in a comment. You just can't stop. You have to keep jumping. You're jumping from this thing to that thing. You're getting promotional emails. It's so much ADD on the actual computer these days. It's incredible. So that's why I really like to learn by books. ES6 and Beyond, I'm looking forward to reading it. It's all about the specifics of the language, the ES6 language. I read a little bit. I've been learning a little bit about ES6 independently also. It's called, you got something called destructuring, what's let, what's for, tons and tons of code examples. Every single one of the books has lots and lots of code examples. I personally hate the theoretical stuff. I have another book which is all about computer programming theory. I thought it was going to help me, and comparing it to literature stories, it was terrible. It just was not relevant, and that's why I really, really love, really enjoy these books. I think that they're really fantastic. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this. Maybe you have your own suggestions for the book that helped you to learn how to program. Maybe it was you got the Bob Martin, you got some other books called Gang of Four. There was some, I think that Gang of Four was mentioned either in this book or maybe in some of the other books. So I would definitely check out Gang of Four also. I already purchased $600 worth of books, and I need to get through these before I move on to the next one. So that's pretty much my summary. If you're jumping straight into the frameworks and you feel like you just keep on getting stuck and you have no idea what you're doing and you feel like you can't build anything efficiently right now, and you're always cloning other people's projects, so it might be a good time for you to go back and understand the fundamentals of the language, which is what this book is all about. And hope this was useful for you. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments, and all the best.